Hi, good morning and welcome to the Leading Edge webcast brought to you by Salesforce, really helping you to be as successful as possible. We want to ensure that you engage with us today on the social conversation. You can use the hashtag SalesforceLive. Let us know your thoughts and any questions that you may come up with. I want to thank also our partner, our App Exchange partner, Gainsight, who really focus on customer success, and they are the customer success company. We know the value of using data to really be successful in selling, but working with Gainsight, you can really use all of that data to make your existing customers as successful as possible. Now, today we're going to be discussing the 3 pillars of success with a very special guest, someone that I've worked with before at a couple of our events. He's really changed the game in so many of different industries. I won't try and introduce you yourself, but Gary, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So Gary,
Yes.
You've got a really interesting background. I think obviously moving into the US, the baseball cards, the wine library. Perhaps for some of the people that aren't familiar with yourself, can you give an intro?
You know, it's fun. Right now, I'm very much known as a marketing guy, a social media guy, but the truth is, at the end of the day, and it's why I really wanted to do this today, is I'm a sales guy, right? I mean, from the age of 5 with Lemonade, and I mean 5 Lemonade stand franchise, really doing sales, to the core of my adolescence, which was be a poor student, but sell pencils and erasers and bubble gum, and then ultimately, because I'm a 41-year-old male and baseball cards were a huge phenomenon in America, I was selling baseball cards at 12, 13, 14, 15 and making thousands of dollars a weekend selling baseball cards, but it was sales. Right. It was sales. And then my dad saved all his money as a Russian immigrant. You mentioned I wasn't born in the US, and bought a small liquor store in Springfield, New Jersey. And my late teens, early 20s were about hand selling wine. You know, you come in for Santa Margarita Pinot Grigio, and I'm gonna try to sell you the Pinot Grigio we make more money on that we think is better. So that has been the constant. I actually think branding and marketing is sales. It's just top of the funnel work. We were just talking about that before camera, like the book, the new TV show I'm doing. It's all sales at the end of the day. And so I'm an entrepreneur, for everybody who's watching. Built a very large e-commerce wine business in the late 90s, early 2000s called winelibrary.com. And then saw the world changing, was using email marketing, Google AdWords, banner retargeting, and then ultimately YouTube as sales and marketing funnels for my wine store. YouTube sells for $2 billion, 1.7 to Google. I think this is a big change in the world of the internet. I decide that my skill of understanding consumers can make me more money in my quest to buy the New York Jets, which is my ultimate business ambition. And I decided to become an investor. My first 3 investments were Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Okay. I did very well. And then I decided 7 years ago to take a step back and build a sales and marketing machine. And that became VaynerMedia, which I started with my brother AJ 7.5 years ago, almost 8 years ago. And over the last 6 years, we've grown from 30 to 700 employees to a $130 million agency, full service media buying, creative, production, planning, all that work. And in January of this year, I created a holding company called Vaynerchuk with my acquisition of PureWow, a female modern media company. And so now we have a publishing arm and the agency. And at the end of the day, all of it, one way or the other, gets into the sales world. Right. And so I consider my PR work, my millions of followers on social, I look at sales very differently than the far majority. I think way too many salespeople are impatient. I think way too many salespeople are transactional. I think way too many salespeople are lowest common denominator, spam, blast LinkedIn, email bulk, business card. So I think I've got a different tactic on sales, but don't get it twisted, it's what I am. Right,
and so clearly the investments you've made in those different companies, what you're doing with VaynerMedia, disrupting the whole media industry, in general, the whole sales world and buying world has been completely disrupted. Number one, from a technology point of view, there's clearly so many technologies out there. But then also number two, around the actual mindset of that buyer and of the salesperson. People don't want to be sold to. I've always found it really interesting. You create all this content, you put it out there for free, and a lot of people kind of question that. They go, well, why would you do that for free? But I'm a strong believer you need to give these insights out for free and ultimately build that connection. So for any sales professionals watching, where would you advise that they start in terms of creating their own content or sharing their content, adding their own context as well?
Before I go directly into the tactics of should you make a video, should you do a written blog post, or should you do a podcast, I think the bigger thing is, and I think you get this as well, is you have to reverse engineer who you're trying to get to. You know, if you're a salesperson out there right now, if you're trying to get to me, and so many of you are, I get 50, 70 bulk emails, bulk direct messages, bulk Twitter direct messages, Instagram, business cards, all sorts of weird stuff sent in the mail. I'm busy.
Right.
I'm busy, and like I'm just not interested in you selling to me, not because I don't like you, because I respect the game, it's because I'm just busy. It's nothing personal. So I think the first thing you have to do is reverse engineer the person. You know, because I'm not in the market to buy anything, I'm gonna be tougher. But if I need certain software, if I need something, that's a good time to attack.
Right.
So I think the number one rule of salespeople is to listen. Know your audience. Know what they did. If you see an M&A just happen, if you see layoffs just happening, if you see one of their, if I see Burger King doing something, I'm thinking, what does McDonald's think of this? Right. So that's number one. Number two, where are they spending time? I'm easy to sell to if you realize that I'm spending time on social networks, but I'm not gonna want you to spam me in my direct message with a link and no context. You should be producing content for me to see it in my feed. I think to answer your question directly, everybody as a salesperson has to figure out how do they best communicate. Is it written word? Is it audio? Is it video? Is it in person? And how do you use the digital world in audio, written, or video form to create the gateway drug to in person? One thing that people are very confused by me is I don't even do phone calls, sales calls. I need to see you face to face. I'm supposed to be this digital guy, and I need to see you. I use digital, and I use all my content on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Medium as gateway drugs to this. So I think anybody who's a salesperson, whether if you're an entrepreneur or startup and you're not producing content at scale, podcast, video blog, blog posts, random Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube clips, then you're losing. That is unacceptable in 2016. That is losing DNA. If you're not producing content for social networks, and the mobile device and the platforms on it,
right,
you basically don't exist. Now, if you're a VP of sales, if you're upper middle class in a big organization like this, I'm a little more empathetic. You have bosses, you have bosses' bosses,
right,
you have rules. I can be a little more empathetic. However, if you wanna be special, if you wanna win, you need to fight for this if you believe it. You need to start having conversations with your boss's bosses, or more importantly, as a normal person, not as the VP of sales for a 500-person SaaS company, but as a normal person on your normal Facebook, on Rick's normal Facebook. You need to start playing around with content creation.
Is it almost building your personal brand, or would you be a supporter of building the corporate brand? Like, what's the balance there?
Look, I think anybody who's a salesperson is probably somewhat building their personal brand anyway, because they're a salesperson. They might as well be selling themselves as well. You never want to be beholden even to an amazing company like Salesforce. You just don't want to be at the mercy of any company. I never begrudge Steve Campbell at Vaynermedia right now building his brand. I'm thrilled. Do your thing. I want to support all those ventures. So I would say it depends on the person. But I guess what I want to really drill home is I just don't understand how in the beginning part, first quarter of 2017, people don't realize that if they're not producing written words, audio, or video content for these 15 platforms, SoundCloud, Spotify, those iTunes, those places for podcasting, right? Facebook and YouTube for video, and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat for pictures and short form video. I don't understand how people think they're relevant.
Right.
And by the way, I think email is still the killer app. I think email's incredible. I think the phone's incredible, but they're declining in our attention. I have not responded to a bulk or even a one-on-one sales pitch in email or phone form in a decade.
Well, there's so many people that have almost taken marketing automation too far. So these emails that make it look like they're coming from a sales rep, but really it's just automated from a marketer, and then they reply on themselves, and it just turns you off.
That's me. Companies get some level of conversion for that,
right,
and they go, Gary, but it works. No. It worked for what you spent
right
at this level. You spent $100,000 in SaaS or automation or upfront costs and reoccurring monthly costs. You spend $100,000 and you got some results and you're okay with that.
Right.
What I hate is they don't know what that $100,000 would have been if they spent it on something else.
Right.
Like the thing that always scares me with sales, like Gary, I'm up 12% this year. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with 40%, jerk?
Right.
Like, to me, the justification that you have some level of success doesn't mean that's the best use of your money. And so we need to really get common sense to the forefront of these conversations. Like, these guys behind the cameras now, what world are we living in, right? Like it's 2017. I don't think like a full page ad in your B2B magazine or every single person watching right now goes home and takes all their direct mail and throws it directly in the trash and is unsubscribing and junking emails 24/7. So we've got to come up with new tactics. And I think the reason I wrote a book called The Thank You Economy, we have to come up with tactics that actually bring value to the person that we want. One of my biggest pieces of advice is to actually know the person you're trying to sell to. If I was actually trying to get to you, well, I want to know that you care about English Premier Football. Because over a couple of pints, I can close you.
Right.
And that matters. Like, I love the Jets. Like, it's a good idea to strike a conversation with me about the New York Jets on Twitter before you try to sell me your bullshit HR software.
Right. And I can't remember if it's on a podcast or in the book, but you talked about this on how you prospected into a C-level executive.
What he's referring to, just to get to the punchline, is I knew that a CMO that I wanted to do business with was a huge St. Louis Cardinals fan by following them on Twitter and listening, and I exploited that as an opportunity to build a relationship, and that became a multi-million-dollar account.
Right.
Black and white.
I think it's really interesting as well, all of these different initiatives that you do, you don't just put them out there, you also engage with people, and that's obviously a key topic we're focused on today around customer centricity. You actually care, you actually respond to people, you like it, what it means to someone just when you like their tweet. It's
something weird happened with me. At first it was a sales tactic. All the great salespeople watching right now, there's a reason that you take people out to steak dinner.
Right.
There's a reason you take them to the ball game. There's a reason you want to. Why is golf a great business thing? You're outside for 5 hours together. We're nowhere to go. It's good business. Why do you take people to the Super Bowl? Why do you take them out for a weekend? It's good business. It's sales. I never understood why people didn't realize that's what's happening on Twitter and Facebook.
Right.
Somebody replies to something, or everybody watching right now can go to Twitter right now and search a term, CRM, HOV, IBM, whatever initials you want to put together, and see a bunch of people talking about their industry, right? And they could just jump in like a cocktail party and say hello.
right.
That's what great salespeople do, but they've done it in real life, but they don't want to do it in social media or on their phone because they don't understand it.
Right.
They don't understand that it's the replication and the scaled version of what they've always done. I can only take one person golfing. I can talk to 97 prospects on Twitter about golf in that same 5 hours. So I think that it started off that way. Obviously, my career has taken a weird turn where entrepreneurs became celebrities, and I have millions of fans. And now, if I like a comment, they think it's cool. The same way I get pumped when Matt Forte of the Jets, if he was to like a comment, I'd lose my mind. I get it. I'm thrilled. I'm humbled. It's wild. I have ego. I have humility. It's a very different world, and I use it for what it is. But it started off, to make it relevant for everybody here, it started off as a sales tactic. It just made sense to talk to people about wine on Twitter. It just made sense to read an article on LinkedIn about wine and jump in and leave one of the comments, a smart one.
Right.
And I didn't DM and reply to everybody saying, buy your wine at Wine Library.
Right.
That's the 17-year-old guy at the bar sales move that 98% of the people watching this right now are deploying on social media, and it's not working. We need more romance.
Right.
You got to romance this girl if you want my business, and so I think that's the way it is for many.
Sometimes a lot of people may try a new initiative and then they don't get an immediate reaction and they think it's a failure.
That's
and
right.
I want to go back to your YouTube videos with the wine library. You had so much content out there. How did you stick in there? How did you keep yourself motivated? Because
I believe in my strategies and I'm patient as shit. Like, all great stuff, especially when you're innovating, doesn't happen right away. This notion that like, oh, Gary, I tried it. I spent $500 on Facebook ads. It doesn't work. Well, what if your video sucked? What if your product and service sucks? I tend to do things that are very early. That has been my career. When I do things, I believe in them. I stick with them based on intuition. Even though for 18 months, nobody watched my wine videos at all, I knew it was right. I was right. There's been things I've done that I've jumped off of very quickly. I started a Gary V app, VChat, V-E-E, like WeChat, thought it was funny, for my fans. Great CRM one-on-one. Didn't feel right after a week or two, spent plenty of money building it, stopped it after, a couple months. Wine Library TV, 5 years, every day, YouTube. Decided to change it to Daily Grape, insular app. You could buy stuff, subscription for reviews. It was a lot of fun. Only did it for 5 months, stopped it because it didn't feel right anymore.
Okay.
It's always hard to know when to jump off something new. But I find that people don't believe in what they're doing. They hear a guru and they do it begrudgingly because their boss wants them to, or they're like, well, Gary's right a lot, so let me do it, but they don't believe it. And so then they're looking for no's instead of yeses. Everything I do, every business development, every event I do, every time I try a new marketing tactic or sales tactic, I'm looking for the yes.
Right.
I'm looking for the yes, and if the no punches me, well then I'm like, crap, the no punched me. I believe the majority of people when they try new tactics are looking for the no, and you're gonna getting a lot of subtle no's immediately.
Right.
And so I think that's why that happens.
And you mentioned the word guru there. I know you met up with Tony Robbins the other day, and he obviously did that great Netflix documentary, I Am Not Your Guru.
Yes.
Other than the fact that he cursed, and so you were extremely grateful for that. It was really interesting just hearing the dialogue between the two of you, because again, to your point, people look at these gurus or thought leaders and then maybe try something and then just go, oh, it doesn't work, and then blame you for it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, the good news for me is I'm not selling my audience anything, so I have very, very good vibes with my community, because when you're not selling them anything, it's really easy. You don't get really blamed. They may have a judgment call on your stuff doesn't work, and that's fine. I think that a lot of people that are watching this right now don't have the talent to achieve what they want to achieve. You know how many people I've met that wanted to be great salespeople, and I can, if you're a salesperson, you can smell other salespeople. It's like dogs sniffing each other. It's not super confusing to me, and I'm like, you're not gonna be a salesman, or shit, you're gonna be a great salesman. So I mean, being a thought leader or having a personal brand or doing the self-promotion or this and that, it's part of my world, but it's really something I spend very little time thinking about. I'm an operator. The Gary Vee thing is my side hustle.
Right.
I'm running a very large organization and company, and I'm very empathetic, and I try to be very frank with my audience. I have a piece of content that's really on the verge of huge virality, where I spoke to a 22-year-old on my Ask Gary Vee show the other day for like 20 minutes, really dug in with her. She was really great, and it was very real. And the reality is that a stunning amount of people behind that camera right now are not going to be successful in sales because they're not willing to work hard enough. They love the automation. They love your product.
Right.
You guys do great at that. Like, they love all these tools. The problem is, if you have the greatest hammer and the greatest screwdriver and the greatest wrench, the greatest, in front of you, if you don't use them properly, you will lose.
Right.
If there's a nail that I have to put in that ground, but I take the wrench and I hit it when the hammer was right there, it still comes down to the practitioner. And you have to be good at your craft, and you have to love if you don't love sales, if you don't love it, you have no chance. Because it's so hard, it's so painful, there's so much rejection.
Right.
So those are the things I think about.
So technology is clearly an enabler, as you've just said there, though.
Yes.
The person is equally important. And
More important.
Right, and going
More
back
important.
to
I just apologize for jumping in, but let me make it perfectly straight. If I go play Roger Federer right now in tennis, and I have the greatest tennis racket ever made, like taken from the Mars' new resources, and he took a John McEnroe 1974 tennis racket, he would whip my ass. Like, I'm crushing salespeople that have every Salesforce, every one of your competitors, 37 features, upgraded, went to every pro conference, watching this. I will beat their ass in sales every day of the week.
Right.
Pure talent.
Right. So you reference, we've got this in the title as well, that there are three kind of key pillars to success.
Yes.
Self-awareness, hustle, which you talk about a lot, and empathy.
And we've already talked about them all.
Right, exactly.
Right?
And we've covered a little bit on the self-awareness and listening. I want to dig into
empathy is so important.
Right.
Yeah, you want to sell to make your bonus this quarter, but does the other person on the other end want to buy your product?
Right.
And are you going to spam them and bother them to death? I love when people email me things like, perseverance, Gary Vee, I know you love hustle. I'm going to keep bothering you. Dude, I don't want to buy your product.
Right.
Like, all you're doing is, perseverance and annoyance are kissing cousins. And if you don't have the tact or the empathy to understand what you're doing, you become annoying real quick.
Right. So where should, you mentioned earlier on the kind of the mid-level management at a larger enterprise company, so perhaps someone that doesn't have the direct control, where should they really start looking?
I think their best option is figuring out how within their organization that they can DJ the assets to be a salesperson. Let me explain. That upper mid tier sales leader, but they don't work with the collateral that's being made in marketing. The first thing that they have to do, and this is where upper middle management always gets destroyed. They first have to stop crying. You can't dwell.
Right.
Like, I understand you're the head of sales, and I understand you got a small budget to make sales happen, and the CMO got a bunch, and I understand he's stupid and doesn't get it and has a fluffy job, and they get to do all this fun stuff. I get it, too bad. This is what you're signed up for. This is what you do. So I think number one, once you stop crying or dwelling of the reality, that helps. Number two, take the assets you have and start converting them. And when I say DJing, if your company was silly enough to buy a print ad in the B2B magazine of the industry, take your phone and take a picture of it and then draw on top of it and make that your asset.
Right.
That's DJing. Take the hard assets, take the film, take this company, take this, right? Free, stream, cut it up into 13 seconds of something smart that I said, 14 seconds of Tim Ferriss's interview of this, add a selfie video of your idea, take that 1 minute video and send it to your client. DJ. That's what I would say. I think they have to get, and then how do you distribute it? Then you, as the SVP, send it to your team, educate them, but then also send it directly to your clients sure, you can try email, but by building up your social and putting it out there, it will be found, especially if you know how to use hashtags. Or make that piece of content with you, use your nephew, use one of the people on your team, and send it to marketing and see if they'll use that collateral. So it's just, to me, sales is about finding its way. And I just think that too many sales leaders in big companies love to spend time complaining about the things that they don't have and the politics within their organization instead of being proactive in doing something and letting the chips fall where they may. And if you're so great, if you should be the CEO, if you should be the CMO, if you should be your boss's boss, if you're so great, your actions there will lead to those opportunities, whether within your organization or other people seeing it when they go to other organizations or people that work with you. The cream always rises to the top. The cream is also very good at not complaining.
What do you see as the role of marketing in all this? I know the traditional funnel, which is probably done by a consulting company who's never touched a lead in their life, says this is marketing, this is sales. Yes. But in reality, it's actually a merge of the two. So for anyone that's listening to all these things that you're saying, go, well, that's not me, that's marketing. What would your response be on that?
I mean, I think they're one and the same. I think that they're left pocket, right pocket. I think they're right hand, left hand. I do think they're very important. Most organizations, I'm empathetic. I'm not sitting on my high horse. Most of you can't control one or the other. That's how organizations are broken up. But I think a great salesperson understands marketing, and I think a great marketing person understands sales. I bought this T-shirt because of the marketing of WWF when I was a kid in the 80s. It's not because this T-shirt company cookied me and converted me in sales, or somebody called me or bulk blasted me with it. But it could have worked that way, because if I see awareness in a bulk email of this, because this already marketed me, I would be more likely to look at it than delete it. They both matter. I love both so much. And I would say that you need to be a politician to be successful within a big organization. To me, the best way to get marketing to do something for you as a salesperson that you actually want is to make marketing love you, not whisper behind their backs that they don't do anything.
What about the different social networks? Again, we've seen you're obviously on every single social network, and that can be a lot scary to sales professionals. So do you have to be everything to everyone, or just some things to some people?
You have to be as much as you can to as many people as possible. So this comes down to your talent. I think I'm capable of having the energy and the creative firepower and the thoughts that make me relevant in book form and in Snapchat form. And so I try to do all of it. But for example, I've written 4 New York Times bestselling books, and if you've ever sent me an email, you probably saw the email I just sent. I'm not capable of putting 2 sentences together. So I hired a ghostwriter. That's back to self-awareness. You need to be self-aware. If you have a gift for gab, maybe you should do a podcast. If you become self-conscious when the camera, I mean, look how many times I've looked at the camera, right? I'm all up in it.
Yeah.
Like, I love the camera, and so video works for me. Other people shy away at this moment and would never even say yes to this, and that's okay. You don't have to do anything that doesn't come natural to you because ultimately you'll have limited upside. You may be able to conquer it and become great at it. That's your prerogative. But I'm a big believer in betting on your strengths. And so I think if you're capable of articulating an incredible thought that is thought leadership, that is a gateway drug to sales, and that needs to be 14 sentences together, well then you need to be great at LinkedIn and Medium and your own blog. And so I think Facebook's an incredible place to blog now, where you can then run amplified ads against employees of companies that you're trying to reach. So I think that, no, you don't have, I think it's very dangerous to tell people like, you have to be great at video because video is hot. Well, what if you're not great at video?
Right.
That's not a good strategy. I think self-awareness as a pillar is key. And so that's how I would look at it.
Right. I want to focus a little bit more on what the most successful people are doing to sell into larger companies where there are multiple stakeholders involved. There are, like CB's research says, there are 6.8 stakeholders involved in a purchasing decision. So we've talked about really investigating, understanding the company, understanding the person. Perhaps when you've been selling into, or VaynerMedia has been selling into large enterprise companies, how do you really deal with that where you've got the CEO, CMO, CFO, and you've got everyone with their different agendas and objectives? How do you start to build that consensus and bring them together?
That's a great question. I'm going to give you a very awkward answer that I'm empathetic that not everybody can take this answer and get value out of it, so I apologize. I don't.
Okay.
I spend so much time on branding and the positioning of our company and what we are and what we aren't, that I let the chips fall. I'd rather go fast and talk to every one of your competitors versus setting my eyes just on you. Now, some people are selling and they only have 10, 15 people that they could work with, and then you've got to have a different answer, and somebody will sit in this seat to give them a better answer. And I can answer it, and I've done it, so I will answer it. But I don't like selling, which is why I think I'm a good salesperson.
Okay.
Meaning, I'm not gonna allow, I just have too much audacity. Like, I'm not willing to eat too much crow. I'm willing to tell you how great we are. I sell in something I very much believe in. We have unlimited competitors. We're a disruptor in the agency landscape. It's hard for us to win. We lose most of our RFPs. That's why we don't even really do them. I let companies come to us. Chase, Toyota, they came to us, biggest brands in the world, through content, through talks, through things like this, through books, the content, LinkedIn posts, Twitter engagement, that's how. And so instead of dwelling and trying to convince all of you, my move is to go directly to your competitors, your 5 competitors, Salesforce's 5 competitors, we all know who they are. I'd rather talk to all of you in parallel and create competition that way than to try to win your business. And I think a lot more people need to do that, because they get on the defense when they're selling instead of going on the offense to all the, if you're trying to sell to car dealerships in tier 3, well, if Ray Katina in Hoboken, New Jersey doesn't want to talk to you, well, go to his competitor.
Right.
And do that a lot. So I'm big on that. Word of mouth travels. I think it's smart. Taking a step back, the problem with 6.8 people is a lot of times of those 6.8, 3 of them have directly different KPIs than the other 3. And that's a problem.
Right.
And I'm empathetic. How can I convince you? Well, there. And so what I do is I tell truths. And so I explain to the person that it's 80% good for, this is 80% good for you and 20% not.
Right.
And for you, it's 20% good and 80% not. I'd rather just put the chips on the table and get to the punchline than anything else. I think the other thing that people need to think a lot about with sales is almost everybody is selfish. So very few people in companies actually care about the company. So to be very frank, a lot of times when I'm selling to the person in their real life.
Right.
Like, I ask them things like, what do you want to happen in life? I want to be the CEO of this company. Well, great. You're not going to do it by taking all the non-risk moves.
Right.
like the world's watching. And I think a lot of people think they're gonna work in the company that they work for right now for the rest of their lives, and that's where they get murdered.
Right.
They make decisions as if they're gonna have a 50-year career there, so they play within the conservative nature of that company. Meanwhile, everybody else is watching. They're doing things that they don't believe in, but they know will get them elevated here. Yet, when that company fires them for that conservative work or they're ready to leave, the market watched them do bad behavior because they did it to win there, but now they're not valuable in the outside world because they haven't marketed properly.
Right.
You know, all the people that didn't use Salesforce in their companies because they knew their bosses didn't like the overhead of the SaaS product, yet when they left or got fired, that lack of Salesforce skill hurt them.
Right.
That's just real.
Right.
You guys know that. I see that 80,000 times a day.
Right.
So I apologize, just to wrap it up, because I want to wrap it up, because I said a lot of things there. You have to talk to the person, Tim, as the executive at Salesforce and as that human being. And what does your product and service mean to them in the short term and in the long term? That has been a very good strategy for me.
Okay. And you know, I certainly at Salesforce, I'm a millennial, I've been here for 5 years now, and I love the company, and I think it helps massively that our CEO and chairman really pushes the word Ahana, family, and that's just a massive part of the culture. And I think it makes so many of our employees so passionate about the company, which then obviously comes across when working with customers.
I believe that, and I think, you know, very honestly, I think one of the things that I love about salespeople is, again, the sales game kicks people out of the ecosystem if they're not in love with it. Salespeople are passionate. I would argue that my biggest concern with salespeople is their passion for sales. A lot of them love selling so much that they forget to even care about what they're selling.
Right.
I think, no question, the reason I've had a great sales career is I've only sold stuff I believe in.
Right.
It makes it so much better.
Right.
So many of my friends are selling SaaS products right now in this great city, New York, that they genuinely don't think are good products. And it upsets me that they have golden handcuffs of their salary and bonus, that they're selling garbage. They know they're selling garbage, and it's creating a very bad long-term legacy for them.
Right. Let's pivot slightly. I want to become more internally focused. And
Okay.
I know you said this is an objective for you in 2017 to do more internal meetings as well. Time is precious. We know how much time is available. It's limited. But for sales managers who are looking at bringing up and coaching the next level of sales professionals, what's the right balance of actually spending time, not necessarily focused on deals, but really on that personal development and helping that individual?
It's a great question. So for the sales managers who've got teams underneath you, I think you have to remember that cliche elevator up, elevator down. So many of you are managing future CEOs, future millionaires, future tastemakers. And I think the number one reason everybody who's watching should spend more time on the people below them is because of that. Because that's selfish. You shouldn't do it because you're a good gal. You shouldn't do it because it's the right thing to do for the company. You should spend ungodly amounts of time with the people below you because it's selfish and in the best interest of your career. And I don't think people see that, my friend.
Right.
I think they go, well, wait a minute, I gotta hit my quota because I have a big bonus at the end of the year. I'm not gonna spend time with that kid. That kid's trying to take my job, or that kid's, I just don't have the time. I'm just doing all this other stuff. Or they'll figure it out, or if they're good, they're doing short-term selfish, long-term vulnerable. I would do short-term empathetic humility and bring value for long-term upside.
Right.
It's the reverse of what most salespeople think. Salespeople are normally, especially people that are in the middle, eating what's in front of them. And so if I spend time with Sarah, who's a raw gem, she's not even that good yet, but I can't spend that hour with her because I gotta go get that deal. Or I gotta go politic with my boss so I can grow. They just don't get how the world actually works.
Right.
And so if I can make any plea here, it's if you're running a sales team of 2, 4, 14, 27, spend a lot more time with them, These are absolutely your future clients. I mean, do you know how many hardcore salespeople, how many times has your junior person 7 years later become your client and you were a dick to them and now they don't want to give you business?
Right.
Like, so stupid.
Right.
Doing the right thing is always the right thing.
I know I became people manager for the first time last year, and I have an amazing team and look to them as the future and really spend a lot of time with them to bring them up. I mean, ultimately, I guess whether it's from a hiring perspective or management perspective, I truly believe that you do want people that are better than you, that are going to have different perspectives and who are going to challenge you.
Yes, because you're playing the long game. There's either marathon runners or sprinters. And even at this incredible place where I am in my career, the deployment of humility, the deployment of listening, the deployment of empathy, the deployment of patience, investing my time is still my number one strategy because I'm still growing.
Right.
I see when people switch and don't do that anymore, that's when I know they've capped out.
Right.
That means they're cashing in their chips. That means they've plateaued. That means they're finished.
Okay. So let me look at that same question from a different perspective.
Sure.
So now we're on to the individual contributor. This is the second time we've worked together, and last year we were running this event in New York City, Sales Machine, and same as our webcast as well. We're putting out this content to help sales professionals, but
yes.
As a sales professional, it's hard because you want to be selling, but you've also got to self-develop and challenge yourself
yes.
to go to these events or learn from these webcasts. So do you have any tips for managing that time, how to avoid, if you get a phone call and say, hey, I need to work on this deal?
It's called stop watching Netflix.
Okay.
It comes down, this is an ambitious question. If you're ambitious and you want to grow, then you are going to have more than enough time to sell and develop. And what are you doing between 8 p.m. and 2 in the morning?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very simple question. There is no running out of time. There is choices. And if you want great work-life balance and you want to be on the softball team, and I mean, yesterday I was here because I had to fly, I knew how to do this, and there's a huge storm in New York on the way, so I flew out a day early. So yesterday was a very weird day for me. I made my CFO cancel his flight to London and come with me so we could do a whole day off-site. And we sat in a lobby of the W Hotel from 8 to 5 p.m. So we were done. I mean, we got a lot of work done.
Right.
And he had to fly to London. And I kind of didn't plan a lot of stuff and just wanted to catch up on work. And I walked into the lobby and there's like 80,000 people there just like drinking 47 beers and wines. And I'm like, well, there's networking, business development going, but the fact of the matter is, I'm blown away when people say they don't have time. If they have that ambition, this is back to self-awareness. You have to know that you don't deserve to grow to the millionaire status or the billionaire status if you're not putting in the work. And so I find it very difficult to believe that somebody who wants to aspire to being successful doesn't have the 15 to 50 hours of self-development to watch these 7 hours or that 3 hours or read a book. If you want it, you'll find it.
And what's the balance? You mentioned kind of work-life balance there. How do you avoid burnout? I know this is a question you get quite a lot, but
yes.
You want to hustle, you want to put all this effort in if you're really motivated, but how do you also stay in check with your own body and ensure that you physically don't push yourself too
There's
far?
certain questions that are very hard to answer, and this is one of them. I don't want to sit here and pontificate. My lifestyle is not only not for everyone, it's barely for anybody.
Right.
And so I don't have, there's no look at me do this. The reason I started my vlog, Daily V, on YouTube was to show people how much I actually am working so they could understand why I'm getting the results, but also see that that's not it for them. So personal question, you have to check yourself, and don't forget, I have a funny feeling your world is different than it was 5 years ago.
Yep.
It's gonna be different in 5 years. Then you get married, then you have children. Some will, some won't. Everybody do their thing. Things happen in life. Your parent gets sick and they're gonna die. If my mom called me today and said she's terminally ill, you wouldn't see me again.
Well, this is something you said you actually start your day off. I remember you saying this to Tony Robbins. Why don't you tell the audience your original thought each day?
I'm very happy, everyone, and I'm really happy because every morning I wake up and I make pretend that somebody in my inner circle has passed, and it scares me. And it frightens me. Usually when I'm showering or brushing my teeth, I feel it. I mean, even right now, I feel it a little bit. And so, I guess my punchline is when I lose a big deal or when somebody trolls me on social media, on Twitter, somebody now saying, I don't like Gary's ego. It hurts and I don't want that. But in the perspective of my life, compared to like somebody in my family being hurt or sick, it means nothing. And so it's a perspective check for me. And that's important, and I think the burnout, work-life balance, relationship advice, raising children, these are all very personal things. We don't know each other. We don't know each other. Like, I can't tell you what to do. I met somebody, an employee of mine said, look, I grew up where my mom worked every minute. And that's her reality. She's a working mom and she's comfortable with it because that was her reality. Somebody else's mom was there every day and it's not the reality. Everybody grew up differently. Everybody has different relationships. You have to make sure your spouse, your inner circle, your loved ones are aligned. It takes a lot of work. It changes, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. Bumpiness, over communicate, try, change your behavior. And I'm far from perfect at it, and you just keep trying to get better at it.
So Gary, look, we're nearly up on time. We'd love any closing thoughts from you for sales professionals, whether at a startup, at an enterprise. What should they go out and do today, tomorrow?
If you're not happy with your upside, if you're not fully fulfilled, I think a lot of what you heard from me today, I'm doing things reverse of you. I think a lot of you are doing things that are directly in front of you. Numbers that they put in front of you, you're trying to achieve that because you have a beach house you want to buy or go on that vacation. Sales is a funny game if you work in a big company. They manipulate numbers to create your actions. I believe that the best salespeople are doing things in a different way. I think you need to care about the customer for real, reverse engineer them and give them what they need. And so I have a funny feeling that for 87.9%, arbitrary number, that 87.9% of the people watching right now, I'm a better salesperson than you because I'm the anti-salesperson, and I think that's the best salesperson. Think about that. Think about how you give yourself air cover to not do behavior that is short term. Please understand that the world has changed and the attention of the person you're trying to get to is moving into different places. And this big one, stop complaining. Salespeople aren't allowed to complain. The market is the market. Your bosses are your bosses. A great salesperson shuts their mouth and she goes to work every day and tries to bring value to the end user and is patient and over time wins the marathon of sales. Put yourself in that position.
Perfect. Well, Gary, look, really appreciate your insights.
Thanks
very much for coming here. And thanks to all of you for joining us today at the Leading Edge webcast. If you want more great sales insights, you can also check out quotable.com. Feel free to share this webcast when it's available on demand in the next 24 hours as well. We're taking a break in April, but we will be back in May with a great CMO lineup hosted by Tiffany Bova. Thank you.